Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are at. I hope you're having a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and we're going to talk about the Fragment event calendar for Zinogre Blade Master. So if you're interested in this champion today, I'm going to be honest with you. It seems to be like this event is tailored around the focus being Dungeon Divers. So if you are watching and reading along with me here, one of the things I probably will suggest for a lot of players is to find as much overlap as you can to ensure yourself a little bit of frugality when it comes to your resources. The more you can save, the better you're off for future events or other events, right? So, what I would say is look out for your Dungeon Diver events. We have 3 this round, which is kind of annoying. As well as 3 artifact enhancement events. Those are probably the 2 big ones. And then we also have 2 summoning events. But with a caveat, if you look at the bottom left right here to my side, right over here, you'll be able to see that we can get a total of 135. 10 and 10 for Champ Training and Champion Chase, respectively, are leaderboard related. So if you're not trying to be the top of the leaderboard, that might be a little bit unfeasible. But if you are, then you got some extras you can get there. However, even with that being said, across the board for tournaments and events, we have enough excess left over. So if you take that 135 minus the 20, you have 15 extra over the 100, right? You only need 100 for the secured, fragment fusion. So you have 15 to play around with, which is kind of interesting. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. With that being said, January the 11th, Thursday, which should be the time of this recording, we do have Champion Training, Dragon Tournament, and Dungeon Divers 1 starting today. So this is a great actual option, and probably the only one in terms of all the Dungeon Divers that doesn't really have too much of a dungeon overlap. And I recommend that if you have the means to do so, if you have like your Battle Khazars, your Theodores, or any champion that could do solo dragon farming content, this could be a great opportunity to pull that out of the bag, polish it up, and let it run with some food adjacent to it so that you can triple dip into not only getting Dungeon Divers, but Dragons and Champ Training done. Now, with that being said, going into Friday, we do have our first summon event, which is going to be a Summon Rush. That one's going to be basically what you use, not what you get. So if you have a decent amount of shards in terms of the shard pool area, you should be good to go for that one. I would say normally you could assume yourself around like anywhere between 2 to 5k, depending on how they balance out the points. I would suspect this one to be a little bit more on the average side though. So look around like 2,500-ish, maybe on average, you know. But following into Saturday, we are going to get Artifact Enhancement number 1. This is pretty much a singular event that you kind of do at your own pacing here. You could do it immediately and just get it over with, which is just basically spinning silver. I follow a rule by 15 mil, so for every Artifact Enhancement, at least 15 mil minimum just to be safe. To be honest with you, if you want to be a little bit more comfy, give yourself 20 mil-ish. So we have 3 of those, and they're kind of they're isolated from any other requirement or any other area where you can get some extra rewards and value out of it. So just look at this 3 by 15 or 20. You're looking at like 45. 15 to, basically like 45-ish mil if you want to give yourself a little bit of a breathing room, right? Now, also on Sunday, which is the next following day, we do get Ice Golem and Classic Arena. This is also when Dungeon Divers 1 and Dragon are going to fall off. I tried to see if maybe like there's going to be some overlap. Maybe you get like a little bit of the Ice Golem into Dungeon Divers 1. It doesn't really seem like it because it seems like it's pretty locked out there. But Classic Arena is its own isolated thing, pretty much as long as you're doing your daily 10 and using regenerative coins that you would use for, your resources for doing Arena, you should be okay to go. We are live while we're doing this, as you can obviously see. Thank you for the sub. But I will say this, Dungeon Divers is going to kick off a day later than when Ice Golem starts. So this could be a great opportunity for you to maybe slow down the pacing on your energy usage and maybe wait until like Monday itself to start doing the Ice Golem farm, right? And how you could pace it is this. You could farm Dungeon Divers number 2 with Ice Golem all the way up until Ice Golem is finished, then pause. I'm willing to bet Dungeon Divers 2 is going to have a little bit more of a requirement. Also because this is something I would keep in mind when it comes to calendars when you're looking at it in terms of application. I'm not swearing by it, but if you pay attention to Dungeon Divers 2 being longer than Dungeon Divers 1's, that might mean that the point requirement might be a little bit harder for 2. So with that being in mind, it's all about pacing here, right? And Ice Golem 1, or Ice Golem tournament with Dungeon Divers number 2, you could pretty much lock that out and solidify that with Ice Golem. Just finish all of Ice Golem during Dungeon Divers number 2. Slow it down there. Deal with maybe some Champ Training. You can switch over to Champ Training, which is going to happen on Wednesday. Start doing a little bit of that, as well as Artifact Enhancer number 2. Get those kind of worked and progressed on. You can maybe get a little bit of Dungeon Diver love there while you're working maybe in campaign. Get some silver from, 12-3 while you're farming up food. Maybe even if you're going in a Minotaur, you can still technically level up some of your champions that you were going to be pushing to 6-star or whatever. That could be a great time to farm a little bit there. And then going into Thursday, we still have Dungeon Divers number 2, but this is when Fire Night starts. So you could do half of Dungeon Divers there, maybe a little bit more than half with Champion Training on Wednesday going into Thursday. But then Thursday going into Friday with Fire Nights, you can finish off whatever's left over for Dungeon Divers number 2. So that's your areas where you got some little double dips here and there that you can get some value from, right? Now, Champ Training is going to be kind of going throughout the rest of the week, so I would try to dip in there as much as you can. I'd probably make that more of a focus just until the Fire Night tournament comes in. Finish off Fire Night with Dungeon Divers number 2. Or you could do it like this. If you're pretty close to finishing Dungeon Divers number 2, you could do half of the Fire Night tournament and then look into the next Dungeon Diver tournament, which is going to be on the tail end of Fire Night. So like on the ending side of Fire Night tournament, you get a little bit of the overlap for Dungeon Divers number 3. This one seems it's going to be a little bit more on pacing with like maybe point requirements with Dungeon Divers number 1. So you can hold a similar mindset if you're worried about your resources, about, you know, realistic expectations of where you're at. But I will say this, Champion Chase number 2 is going to come in on Friday as well. This is where I'm going to take a quick moment and pause. Remember we were talking about those 15 points? If you take a look at this calendar and you see how Summon Rush and Champion Chase are both 15 each, you could skip one of these, but that means you cannot skip any other event. You know, whether it's tournaments for the dungeons, arena, anything around those lines, you can technically skip only one of the Champion Chases or one of the Summon events, right? Now, if you do participate in both Champion Chase and Summon Rush, you could skip other stuff. So, like, on this note, this is where I would consider maybe, you know, that Champion Training is a little bit too much demand, and it is 15 points there. Maybe I just exclude that out of the entire pool. Pull my shards on that one. You have your own plug and play of, like, how you want to, approach this particular fragment event. So, I will say this. Take a conscious analysis of what you have for your shards here. If you have them, pull them, and you're feeling comfortable with the pull, maybe there's some events tied around it that you may want to dip your toes into, then by all means, you can pull your shards, and maybe you can slack off on a different event or tournament that you don't want to work on. But if you are going to skip the Champion Chase, get ready to do everything else, because you're going to need all those fragments at the end of the day, right? Now, with that being said, Champion Chase starts on Friday. Going into Saturday, we're going to have Classic Arena Tournament number 2. This is pretty much the same thing. You just got to be active as long as you're daily doing your 10 plus regenerative, maybe the 15 from the refills. All the refills and regenerative arena medals will get you pretty much through the course of that fight. I'm not gonna lie. I would say that, like, I've done somewhere I've started from the beginning and I did my 10 that I had from when I woke up, and then I did like 2 or 3 refills and I was pretty much done with the event. You know what I mean? So, like, if you don't have the refills, just pace yourself. Just know that you'll get some medals along the way, like one every hour or so, something around those lines. And then, you know, daily login quest and advanced quest, you can get some extra stuff there to help push you along the way. Now, with that being said, we did talk about Dungeon Divers number 3 and Fire Night Tournament, but also Spider Tournament. So when Fire Night ends, we get Spider, which is still coinciding inside Dungeon Divers number 3. So you could split Dungeon Divers number 3, a little bit of Fire Night, a little bit of Spider, right? But at this point, I would probably power and throttle through to make sure that you get Dungeon Divers 3 done through Spider. And then probably by that point, you're also going to be finishing out Spider Tournament 2 as well. So just keep that in mind. And then, of course, last but not least, we got Artifact of Enhancement number 3, which is where you'll be able to see a little bit of silver depletion because you got some stuff to work on. But this may not be too bad of one to get into, because around Spider time is when you see an influx of your silver. I would pace yourself across Artifact 1 and 2, though. Just be careful with that. But Artifact 3, that's just pretty much where your silver bounce backs, because you're doing the tournament anyway, so you're going to get a lot of silver from just doing Spider, maybe selling some artifacts that aren't, or accessories that aren't really worth what you're looking for. And then during Artifact 3, because you are farming all the other dungeons, you may have gotten 1 or 2 pieces that are worth, like, a little bit of an investment. This will be the time to, like, all right, let's see what we can get out of this piece. And maybe it might be something new for you. So with that being said, all of this should give you pretty much an encompassing approach of how you can approach Zinogre. Let me know in the comments below. What do you guys plan on doing? Are you going to go for this exclusive champion that's only limited? It's a time limited one, so keep that in mind. Or is this one going to be a pass? I know a lot of people are deliberating going for a summon event for the Archer champion that we did a little conversation around. She's very, very strong. So all my Hydra boys that are looking out for something new to play with, and, you know, maybe the Archer's a little bit more up your alley, and that could have a conflict of interest. So let me know what's your path to excellence amongst the Monster Hunter inspired champions. Let me know in the comments. And anyways, with that being said, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and always remember, stay ascended.